Staying with education issues, the Khoisan community and traditional leaders across the country have thrown their weight behind those calling for schools to be shut down. The group in the Western Cape in particular says the provincial education department did not consult school governing bodies about the reopening of schools. Reporter Ronald Masinda is in Paarl, where the Khoisan activists are gathering, and he joins us now. Ronald, a little bit earlier this afternoon when we spoke to you, you spoke to a number of representatives from the community, and they were essentially saying that the community cannot afford the dire costs associated with COVID-19, that school governing bodies had not been considered or approached to take part in discussions with the Western Cape Education Department about reopening of schools, and that they want schools shut down again immediately to protect both learners and teachers. I'm assuming that meeting has concluded now. What has come out of that meeting?
Well, good day to you once again, Anley. Well, that meeting is still ongoing, but since we have left that vicinity, we've come to one of the local schools here, Charleston Hill Secondary School. The school has been around since 1976 and has been one of the hardest hit, not only due to COVID, but also issues of vandalism. Across the road, Anley, there's actually an informal settlements area where a number of people who live here, who live in that area, have broken into the school, and this is been one of the concerns for the residents here, saying that this school is certainly not ready with regards to coping during this pandemic. One of the members that we spoke to earlier in that meeting even went on to say that teachers were actually forced to come back to teaching, given that they were told that they will not be paid unless they come back and work as teachers. We are joined by one of the concerned residents, is a grandparent of one of the learners at the school, a lady by the name of Sanya Sheldon. Sanya, thank you so much for your time. I've raised quite a number of issues here. What are some of the other concerns here?
The one of the concerns is de schooldraden wordt afgebreekt, de school wordt ingebreekt. De school heeft in 2018 gebrand. De school is nog net al 2020. Ons kinderen ziek geraakt na dit. De school, dus de betrokken landen, is verleden week ter school toe. Die kinderen moeten hulle eie sanitize brengen. In de voorwaarde, als ik het met kleine school toegestuurd van de school zich sanitize. De werkers moeten zelf wel de school sanitize. Waar is die geld?
Thank you, Baya. Well, as she mentioned there, Anley, she says that one of the main concerns is also just on the issue that I mentioned earlier on. There was actually a fence bordering the school that separates the school from that informal settlement, and that fence was taken down. It only lasted about 2 weeks, and that some of the issues here really, due to the break-ins, the teachers have limited resources, and also the issue of a lack of sanitizers. The lady mentioning there that even a child, she doesn't even get to sanitize her own hands, so she is really worried about her grandchild. I'm also going to bring in a former school teacher at the school, a gentleman by the name of Vincent Bowers. He actually went to the school, first of all, back in 1976. Vincent, thank you so much for your time. Now, a really worrying sight also, given that we've also seen the school, as you mentioned earlier on, the school was gutted down back in 2018, and that children were not now forced to move to other schools. Can you add more on that?
You know, when standing here, it's quite nostalgic to stand here. An ex-pupil, ex-teacher, and now a concerned parent. It's difficult for me to look around me and see that nothing has changed at the school. Absolutely nothing. The school is still the same, just different paint. When it burned down in 2018, we thought it might be rebuilt again. Nothing happened. The unfortunate thing is, if you can scan around, you will see this area is one of the poorest areas, and our kids are still here. And it's difficult for me to accept that nothing has been done to our children to help them, or to help the school so that our children can be safe. The unfortunate thing is that it seems to me they are not concerned about our kids. Our kids are dying, and they're going to die because they're going to be congested when they get to the school. And the unfortunate thing is we have to look after our kids because the kids are our future. They are the people that are going to take our legacies forward, and if they are not there, where are we going to be? Thank you.
One gentleman during that meeting also mentioned that in one class there's about 90 school children. Now that is really unheard of, given that social distancing is such an important issue around this pandemic. In terms of your experiences, are there other schools that are affected by congested classes? And what are the sentiments on the ground from school governing bodies?
Okay. What you just said is quite true. The thing is that all the so-called non-white schools, basically, they are still the same. Nothing has bettered for them. They've got no equipment. As you can see how the area looks, there's nothing going on outside. So, unfortunately, our kids have nothing to strive for except their education. And that is what's driving them. They know that through education they can get somewhere. But unfortunately, I can't let my child suffer for education with their lives. That's the only problem that I have. Their lives are more important to me. So if they have to stay out of school to stay alive, that's what they're going to do.
All right, Vincent, in closing, you're one of the delegates who have led that actual meeting. What is the situation now going forward?
I'm not so quite sure what they're deciding on, but one of the decisions is that we have to mobilize our parents, our community, our teachers, that they stand as one and realize that we can't put our children in a congested class. Because they say there should be social distancing. And you can't have social distancing if you have 50 plus kids in one classroom. It can never happen. And unfortunately, I believe that the only way forward is to get together, and stand up against this. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much indeed for your time. Well, that was Vincent Bauer, former learner and also a school teacher at Charleston Hill Secondary School, and basically painting a picture of a really sad state of affairs, a school still grappling with very limited resources, and also saying that now is the time for them as a community of Drakenstein to stand up and actually force schools to be shut down, given that this could lead to more infections. We've also heard earlier on quite a number of teachers were infected at one of the schools, at least 7 teachers. So this, for them, is really a sign of things that will come.
Ronald, before I let you go, can you tell us whether representatives from the Western Cape Department of Education are attending this meeting with community members so that they can be held to account for those decisions in which school governing bodies in this area specifically were not consulted?
Well, we haven't seen any of those representatives from the Western Cape Education Department, but what we do know is that they've also been saying that they've done all they can to support schools. They have at least 1,509 schools that they are supporting during this time, and they've given enough PPE to the value of nearly 300 million rand. So that has been the sentiments shared by the Western Cape Education Department, but the concerns here on the ground are really ones that they need to hear more voices and more people saying that we need to shut down schools, because the Western Cape Education Department has said previously, in fact, in just a few days ago, that they do support schools to reopen, given that it might impact on the future of school children and also those who depend on the livelihood of teaching. So a lot of the teachers that I also spoke to last week, covering the story of the infection rate that has gone up quite drastically, is that teachers are scared to speak about some of the problems that are facing on the ground. And it's a sentiment that the Western Cape Education Department says that they actually support teachers not to speak so that they don't add to the stigma that could arise for school children when they go back to their communities, where other children will point fingers at them to say that they are at a school where COVID-19 is quite huge.
I thank you very much for that report from the Western Cape. Ronald Masinda talking to us there about the huge divide in education.